Hey guys, welcome back to the 31 Days of Tarot created by Ethony, and her video link is in my description as always. Today is day 26 and the question is, what tarot deck do I wish that I could get into or vibe with but just can't, and why can't I? And then there's the reminder that this isn't an opportunity to bash the deck or the creator, but just the acknowledgement that of course we all work with different decks and imagery in different capacities, and so some decks just aren't going to vibe with us. Now it's really interesting, the question, because it says, what one do I wish I could get into a vibe with but just can't? And if I actually think about that question on its own, there's none that I wish that I could vibe with and didn't. I have had decks, and I will talk about those, that I don't vibe with, but there's not really any attachment or sadness or disappointment about not vibing with them. It just is one of those things, and then every single one of those decks has left me barring one. And I figured I would just discuss two, one of the ones that had left me and the one that obviously remains in my collection, because I'm sure that would interest people. The one that I had for a period of time that I thought I would really vibe with was the Paulina Cassidy Spirit Song Tarot. As many of you know, it's not news that I love animal decks. I think Paulina Cassidy is an absolutely astounding artist. I love the intricacies of her artwork, and I can imagine owning a piece of her artwork for, to put up somewhere on the wall. When I heard that there was an animal deck, I was like, yes, yay. When that deck came to me, I really tried with it. I had some space, I tried it again. I'm not one to force myself, but I wanted to give it enough time. It really just never happened for me. I loved that she went a different route with the animals, and that it wasn't just all birds for the swords, etc., even though I love decks like that as well. But the Paulina Cassidy one felt like it took a very different route, and as I say, I really enjoyed the imagery. I was a little sad that the pictures of the artwork, they had maybe made them more pastel, and not like the Animal Wisdom Tarot. It's kind of a very gentle hint of colour throughout. The deck works really beautifully laid out in a spread, but it was just something in particular that maybe isn't necessarily my art style. One of the other things that I noticed, which again it really surprised me, because I have no issue with having keywords on decks. I also don't feel like I'm impacted or confined by those keywords. Often I may not even pay attention to them. I'm a rogue, and if I want to focus on the keyword I do, and if I don't, it's fine. It's never put me off a deck before. I think this was more of a combination of things. I do have a nice variety of animal decks, and whilst I joke and say I want them all, I am actually more, because I have a good selection, I'm going to be a bit more discerning and sort of make sure that the deck's really working for me. And so one of the other things was the keywords. And in the book there is a larger variety of keywords. On the cards, 2 were selected, and the 2 that were selected for me felt very more on the light side of the cards, if we think about light and shadow. But even for the cards that maybe they're more easily seen in shadow and we have to search for the light aspect of them, it felt like they were quite light across the board. Not a problem if people are looking for a gentle deck. It would be a great beginner's deck. The keywords were they did work for it, but it didn't vibe with me, and it went on, and someone is loving it, which is awesome. I know many people who enjoy that deck. The other deck that remains in my collection, which people are going to be like, I can't believe you don't like it, you may already know, is my Rider-Waite Smith. My Rider-Waite Smith that I own is the Centennial. I value the Rider-Waite Smith deck for the whole structure and school of thought that I've learned from that particular system. I value Pixie's artwork, and I've said actually some of her other artwork outside of tarot I adore, and I really love Pixie's star card. I really love her Queen of Wands. Oh my gosh, her Queen of Wands gives me life. That woman is a witch. I don't care what anyone says, with a little black familiar, it is so good. But as a whole, I don't enjoy the particular artistic depictions, because for me, it feels so removed from things that I am familiar with, things that I enjoy. It feels like there's a religious tie to it, and I know that some people may not feel that way, but for me it does feel like that. And yes, it's the cliche, the Hierophant card. I have no issues with the energy of the Hierophant. That depiction isn't one that brings me any joy whatsoever. That kind of Pope looking dude. And I actually found that whilst for study it's perfectly fine, that time and time again for readings, bearing in mind that the reason I have a variety of decks is because I like to read the artwork as well, and I like to see how those images are playing with each other. And I feel very stunted by the visual and my own, personal feelings about the visual in that deck. And so the readings just don't feel as enjoyable for me sometimes. Now, I wouldn't get rid of it. The Centennial, the cardstock is so good, and the coloration, and it's a deck that I often take out and, as I say, do study with and look at the symbology. But I got to the point where I had to realise that actually the artwork is just not doing it for me. It doesn't feel like it, as I say, represents anything that I know. It's very old-fashioned, and I'm not one for historic decks. I like fantasy decks, animal decks, nature decks, or if I'm gonna have a people deck, I would rather that they were more relevant. And so I am gonna be the person on here who says that, do I really want to put that out there? I have said it before, but this is really going to get heard. And as I say, it's a personal preference. The deck just doesn't bring me heaps of joy, but it does have its uses. It's very resourceful, and if it didn't exist, maybe loads of other decks that I love didn't exist. So again, I'm not thankful for it. It just doesn't do anything for me other than study purposes. That was a bit longer than I'd anticipated, but I wanted to fully share my reasoning as opposed to just saying, I didn't like them, and also be aware that, like I say, it's subjective, and so you guys may feel completely differently. I'm looking forward to hearing other people's, because I think it'll be a really, really diverse day in terms of what people share. And I will see you guys all again tomorrow.